We are God, we Ganesan. We are God, Ishvara. Ishvara Drishti, that is, seeing ourselves as God, is itself divine grace. So, we need divine grace to get God's grace. Maharshi smiles. Maulana Mansur al-Hallaj of the Middle East was sent to the gallows by orthodoxy for saying, Ana al-Haq, I am God. That was in the 9th century AD, centuries earlier than that, nearly 2 millennia before. Now, a carpenter's son of Nazareth in Israel, who said, I and my Father are one, and I am the truth, was nailed to the cross at the instance of the orthodoxy. A few centuries before, the Good Shepherd was thus eaten up by the bad wolves of orthodoxy. An Athenian sculptor turned philosopher called Socrates was made to drink a deadly cup of hemlock for the heinous crime of telling the Athenians gnoti siaton, which means know thyself. Mansur, Jesus and Socrates were all men of truth, true God-men. What they said was nothing but the truth. Yet, why were they killed by their fellow men? Mind you, their killers were all religious people, not non-believers. The killers believed that God is out there, up there, beyond there, not within. They thought, as men still do, that men and women with their bodies and minds are different from one another and that God ruled over their destinies. Mansur, Jesus, and Socrates, on the contrary, had lost their individuality and found the everlasting, limitless, luminous truth, God, within them, called by them variously as Haq, Allah, Eli, and so on. When they said I, they meant the one universal self within each being, whereas to the killers, I was no more than the person uttering that word. Even in this country, where the Mahavakyas like Aham Brahmasmi, meaning I am Brahman, Tat Tvam Asi, meaning you are that, Brahman, etc., were given to men thousands of years ago. There has been a long philosophical feud between those who said that the individual soul is God, impersonal absolute itself, and those who said no, they are two different things. The jiva, individual, is just an aspect of God, the personal God, and the part cannot hold the whole. Bhagavan Ramana, in his benedictory verse to his Tamil translation of Acharya Shankara's Atmabodha, said, Can Shankara, the enlightener of self, be different from one's own self? Who, but he does this day, abiding as the innermost self in one, speak this in the Tamil language. It would therefore not be proper to speak of Bhagavan Ramana and Acharya Shankara, or, for that matter, Mansur, Jesus, Socrates, Buddha, and other self-realized beings as different beings. They were the same self-manifesting in various ways at various times. However, the manifestation of the self as Bhagavan Ramana was one of perfect silence and stillness. Sri Ramana made no assertions and never preached nor discoursed. He was a mountain of peace and stillness, clad in a loincloth, and in the early years, his hair unkempt and nails uncut. He was immersed in himself. He had no need to instruct, much less reform people, because to his illumined eyes, the world was Brahman, and everyone was that only. Yet, people, both the learned and the unlettered, revered him as a Swami, an ascetic. One day, a man of monumental Sanskrit and scriptural scholarship and matchless poetic skill came, saw him, and was conquered and bade his students refer to him thenceforth as Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. How did the Mahakavi, the great poet, recognize Sri Ramana as Maharshi, the great seer as Bhagavan, the Divine One, the Blessed One? Ganapati Muni, for that was his name, said, thanks to God-given knowledge. During the 54 years of Bhagavan Ramana's silent spiritual reign from Arunachala, countless seekers of wisdom came to him from far and near. They had only to spend a brief while in his presence before they realized that here was a being totally devoid of body consciousness and ego, and here was truly Bhagavan, the Divine One. Sri Ramana did not have to proclaim, I am God or I am Brahman. The truth stuck out 1,000 miles literally. What is more, in his Sannidhya, meaning presence, one became impersonal and understood his unity with all beings. When one saw that Bhagavan not merely showed equality and fraternity with men and women, birds, goats, cows, monkeys, deer, dogs, snakes, and so on, but was in total indivisible oneness within them. One spontaneously felt the godhood of every living thing, including plants and trees. Sri Kunjaswami, the old ashramite, often used to say that while an avatara is not a total manifestation of the self, a Mahanyani like Bhagavan is. Actually, Sri Bhagavan said that since the self ever is, where is the question of avatarana or descent? Sri Ramana, whom Sri Aurobindo once referred as a spiritual colossus, did not move among men as an awesome superior being, not even as a first among equals, not even as one among equals, but as the pure, non-dual essence. There were not two of any kind for Sri Bhagavan. The Guru and the disciples, men and women, Jnani and Anyani, the good and the bad, man and beast, were all the one self for him. Indeed, we are that. The plural we vanishes into the singular, non-dual that. Nanudiya thulla nilai nam, aduvayulla nilai. உள்ளது 27. The state in which the I does not arise is the state in which we are that. 40 verses on reality. The idea of God, Ishvara, Yahweh or Jehovah, Allah, Haura Mazda, and so on, has obsessed man since millennia. A Western thinker, when asked what, according to him, was the greatest human invention, said God. Voltaire, the French savant and satirist par excellence, said if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. Of Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, it is said that in one book he denied God, in a second he affirmed God, and in a third, the critique of judgment he found him. Another German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, declared God is dead. When someone knocked at the door of the Sufi saint Bayezid and asked, "Is Bayezid there?" the saint answered, "Is anybody here except God?" Gandhiji, who kept saying, "God is truth," later started saying, "Truth is God." On his returning to Earth, the first Soviet cosmonaut said that he could not find God anywhere in space. When St. John of the Cross of Spain came out after serving a term in prison, he said, "When I was in the prison, I was so intoxicated with God that when I came out, I could not see anything except Him everywhere." So, there have been in every country believers in God, non-believers, and agnostics who neither believed nor disbelieved. There are those who find God everywhere, those who find Him only in place of worship, and others who don't see Him anywhere. J. Krishnamurti told even his young students God is disorder, but he always added, if you have perfect inward order and gave all your love to someone or something, then that is God. So, God is disorder, but total order and harmony is God. The Buddha also slurred over God because he was Buddha the awakened. But awakening is Godhood. An awakened man realizes that his consciousness is God. The disorder that exists in our sleepy, dreamy lives vanishes when we wake up and find our true identity. Bhagavan Ramana says that our so-called wakeful state is a dream, only it is a long dream. The Jnani, the awakened, self-realized one says, I slept and dreamt that the world was real. I woke and found that the world is a dream. The self is real. He also found, I am Brahman or Shivoham, I am Shiva, or Ana al-Haq, or even better as Bhagavan Ramana pointed out, I am. What a beautiful word the Hebrew language has for God, Yahweh, which means I am. Jehovah is the angelized form of the word Yahweh. Sri Ramana said that the Old Testament's I am that I am is even better than Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, as a description of the self. Mansur al-Hallaj, Jesus of Nazareth, Bayezid, Acharya Shankara, Bhagavan Ramana, and other liberated beings had lost their ego I and gained the self I am. Self, God, I am, Brahman, Chit are all different words for the same reality. How can the ignorant who are limited to the inert body and phantom mind know the sacred import of the words we are God and al-Haq? Why do men live in oblivion of their divine identity? Why do they gape in disbelief when told, I am God, you are God, we are God, or when told that the world is an illusion and the self is real? Why do men live in sorrow and conflict? Why do men behave like little limited creatures of circumstances? Why is the human family divided by ever so many walls between man and man? Is self-realization within every man's reach, or is it only for the chosen few? Not only these, but 1,000 other questions are answered by Bhagavan Ramana, mostly in silence and at times in a few chosen words. Those who make a careful study of his printed works will find the whole riddle of life and death solved for them. Bhagavan always says, know yourself first. What kind of knowledge is the knowledge of diverse things when the self that is true knowledge remains unknown? He often asked the questioner who asks the question that turned the questioner inwards. Many realized in Bhagavan's presence that he is the core of one's own being and that he dwells in one's own heart. Sri Balarama Reddyar, who had come to Bhagavan after spending some years at the ashram at Pondicherry, said to himself, this is Sarveshwara. This is the Lord of all. Turn inward. Be. The Sadguru in human form pushes you inward, and when you really wholly turn inward, the Sadguru, who is ever present in everyone as the self from within, takes you over. Be the self. One is self. One is Chit, pure consciousness. One is God because the pure consciousness is limitless, eternal, all-pervasive, non-dual, and is perfect bliss and peace. In Bhagavan Ramana, The external and internal Guru are one. If seeing the self is seeing God, seeing Sri Ramana is to be the self. So instant is the transmission. There is nothing higher or more sacred than the pure consciousness, and nothing is apart from it. There is no God other than it. Self-realization is the state in which one has the plenary experience of one's own nature, one's Chitsvarupa, which is without beginning and end. It is unbroken awareness bliss. Tan ஆதியில் யாதென தான் தெரிகிற்பின் அநாதி அனந்த சத் உந்தி பர யகண்ட சிதானந்த முந்தி பர உபதேச உந்தியார். That is the Sat, the reality, which is always the true nature of everyone. என்றும் எவர்க்கும் இயல்பாயுள்ள பொருள். Bhagavan taught this truth by being the self. His words, both written and spoken, have tremendous power and beauty, though they are few, while his silence is unfathomable. He is verily the eternal silent teacher. One realized in his presence sooner or later that to know God, we have to be God, and God we are, now and forever. What separated us from our Godhood is our individuality, our ego, which is a phantom, a myth. இருக்கும் இயற்கையால் ஈச சீவர்கள் ஒரு பொருளே ஆவார் உந்தி பர உபாதி உணர்வே வேறு உந்தி பர தன்னை உபாதி விட்டு ஓர்வதுதான் ஈசன் தன்னை உணர்வதாம் உந்தி பர தானாய் ஒளிர்வதால் உந்தி பர உபதேச உந்தியார் 24-25. In the realm of reality, God and man are one and the same. Any difference felt of separation is but gross ignorance. Ridding oneself of this ignorance is to realize the truth that one is none other than God, who throbs from within as I am. Upadesha Undiyar, Bhagavan Ramana ever is, for the self is eternal. What is never is not. When a devotee asked him how to know the power of God, he said, "You say I am, that is it. What else can say I am? One's own being is his power. The trouble arises only when one says, I am this or I am that, such and such. Do not do it. Be yourself, that is all." The whole teaching of Bhagavan Ramana can be distilled in the words be, abide as the self. We are the self, which is Sat, Atman, Brahman, God. The killers destroyed Mansoor Jesus, Socrates, Gandhi, and other men of God, but they killed the body, not the self. The body never was, the self ever is. According to an Eastern legend, man lifted the veil from the goddess of size and saw himself. Sri Bhagavan lifts the veil from man and shows him to be God. Om Shri Ramanarpanamastu. Thou art the central string, sustaining earthly creeds. In as thou dost sustain whatever moves or lives. When mind cremates itself and inward vision gains and further plunges deep, then is seen thy light. When once thy light is gained, Avan, all earthly fears, all objects shows depart. The mind's a sensitive plate. If Brahman's solar rays do once upon it fall, it's sensitive no more. Their objects of the world no more impression make, and is there aught in truth beside thy glorious self? Arunachala Ashtakam